He called me a broken old man in the house I built with my own 2 hands. My daughter just watched, smiling coldly. They thought they had defeated me. They were about to learn that this old fire captain still knew how to burn everything down. The smell of Thanksgiving hit me the moment I woke up. Turkey, sage, sweet potatoes. It was the smell of Clara, my wife. For 35 years she ran this holiday. Her laughter was the music of this house. This was the second Thanksgiving without her. The scent used to comfort me. Now it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. A reminder of everything I lost and everything that had been stolen. I sat at the head of the table. My table. Sturdy oak. I bought it when I made captain at the firehouse. It was built to last. Tonight I felt anything but sturdy. My left arm was heavy, thick plaster cast, suspended in an ugly blue sling. It throbbed, a deep grinding ache. The painkillers didn't touch it. The doctor called it a spiral fracture, a bad break. But the break in my arm wasn't the worst pain I felt, not even close. The dining room was full, too full. My daughter Emily and her husband Ryan were hosting. They insisted. It was crowded. My cousin Sarah was here, looking pale and anxious. Our neighbors, the Hendersons, wouldn't meet my eyes. And then there were Ryan's people, business associates, loud men, expensive suits, empty eyes. They didn't belong here, not in Clara's dining room. I looked down at my plate, piled high with food. Ryan served me. He made a grand show of it. A thick slice of turkey, mashed potatoes swimming in gravy, green bean casserole. It looked delicious. It smelled like heaven, but I couldn't eat it. I'm left-handed. My right hand felt clumsy. Useless. I fumbled with the fork. I tried to stab the turkey. The angle was all wrong. The fork scraped loudly against the china. A screech. It echoed in the unnervingly quiet room. All conversation stopped. Dead silence. 20 pairs of eyes turned to me. My face burned. Shame. Hot and suffocating. I'm 68 years old. I spent my life running into burning buildings, saving lives, leading men. I was Thomas Miller. I was used to respect, used to competence. Now, I was a spectacle, a failure, unable to feed myself in my own home. I was hungry, my stomach twisted, but the humiliation was far worse. Ryan chuckled, a low, nasty sound. It grated on my nerves. He sat at the opposite end of the table. He was already carving himself a second helping, using Clara's antique silver carving set, the set her grandmother gave her. He handled it like a cheap toy. "Having a little trouble there, Tom?" he asked. His voice dripped with fake concern. He never called me Dad. Always Tom, delivered with a subtle sneer, a way to remind me I was no longer in charge. I didn't answer. I focused on the fork. Tried again. My hand trembled. The fork clattered onto the floor, bouncing off the hardwood with a loud noise. It felt like a gunshot in the silence. Cousin Sarah half rose from her chair. "Oh, Thomas, let me help you." Emily cut her off. She placed her hand on Sarah's arm. Her grip was tight. I saw Sarah wince. "He's fine, Sarah," Emily said, her voice sharp. "He needs to learn to adapt. Adapt." As if I were a child learning to tie my shoes. Emily stood up. She tapped her wine glass with a knife. The crystal rang, clear and sharp. She looked elegant. Black dress. Expensive. I knew it cost more than my monthly pension. Her hair, the same chestnut brown as Clara's, was pulled back tightly, too tightly. It made her face look hard. "I know this is a bit uncomfortable for everyone," she said calmly. She addressed the guests. "Not me, I was invisible. Dad is having a difficult time adjusting to the new arrangements." She paused, looked around the room, making sure everyone understood that I was old, that I was weak, that I was the problem. "Sometimes change is hard," she continued, her smile thin. "Dad thought he could still control everything, make all the decisions. He refused to accept the reality of his situation." She looked down the table at Ryan. A look passed between them, a silent victory. He needed to realize he can't. My husband taught him a lesson. The silence deepened, suffocating. Mr. Henderson stared at his plate, his face red. Ryan's associate smirked, exchanging knowing glances. They enjoyed this. They enjoyed watching me crumble. Ryan beamed. Pride radiated off him. He threw his shoulders back, lifted his chin. "That's right," he shouted. His voice boomed. filling the space where Clara's laughter used to be. The old man thought he was the boss here. He thought he could tell me what to do in this house that I'm practically paying for now. He gestured expansively, waving the carving knife in the air. Clara's knife. So, I proved him wrong. I showed him who's really in charge. There's a new captain in this firehouse. Old-timer. The walls seemed to close in. This was my home. The home Clara and I saved for, painted, loved. The home where Emily took her first steps. The home where I thought I would die. And now I was a prisoner. In it. I looked at Ryan, grinning, basking in his victory, enjoying my pain. I looked at my daughter, my little girl, standing by his side. Her eyes cold, empty, a stranger wearing my daughter's face. And then I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, small, tight, but it was there. Ryan's grin faltered, just for a second. He didn't understand it. He thought I was broken, defeated. He didn't know the fire still burned inside me. Across the table, my old friend Jake caught my eye. Jake, my accountant, my confidant for 40 years. He gave me an almost invisible nod. 10 minutes. That's what Jake promised. 10 more minutes of this nightmare. I could handle that. The throbbing in my arm lessened, replaced by a cold, steady pulse of anticipation. They thought this was the end. It was just the beginning. As Ryan resumed his boasting, the past year flashed through my mind. The slow, creeping invasion, the calculated takeover. It all started after Clara died. If you're listening to this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. It started with grief, a physical weight, a shroud that settled over me, making it hard to breathe, hard to move. The house was too big, too quiet, filled with ghosts. I rattled around in it like a pebble in an empty jar. I stopped taking care of myself. The garden Clara loved became overgrown. Weeds choked the roses. I didn't have the energy to fight them. I was sinking. Emily's suggestion seemed like a lifeline at the time. Just for a little while, Dad, she had said. Her voice soft, caring, the way it used to be before she met Ryan. You shouldn't be alone. You're lost without Mom. Let us take care of you. She paused, touching my arm, gently. And besides, Ryan and I are saving up for a down payment on a new place. It would help us out, too. I was desperate for comfort, desperate to fill the silence. I agreed instantly. I wanted my daughter back. I wanted the house to feel alive again. I wanted to believe that family meant safety. It was the biggest mistake of my life. At first, it was a relief. The house was clean. Emily cooked. Her food lacked the warmth of Clara's, but it was something. Ryan mowed the lawn, fixed the leaky faucet that had been dripping for months. They played the part, the perfect, caring family. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this could work. I started to rely on them, and that's exactly what they wanted. But slowly, subtly, the dynamic shifted. It was like a slow leak, barely noticeable until the pressure dropped completely, until I couldn't breathe. It started with the car. Ryan needed to use my sedan. Reliable, practical. His Mercedes was in the shop. Just for a few days, Tom, he said, flashing that salesman's smile. My mechanic is waiting on a part from Germany. A few days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. His car was never fixed. Mine became his. I saw him driving it around town. Windows down, music blaring. I was left relying on them for rides. Trapped in the suburbs I had once loved. My independence was the first thing to go. I didn't realize it then, but the cage was being built around me. Then came the renovations. We need to modernize this place, Tom, Ryan said one afternoon. He looked around the living room, with disdain. He tapped a framed picture of Claire and me, our 25th anniversary. We were so happy. It looks like a museum. We need to clear out the clutter. The clutter was my life. Clara's favorite armchair, the one with the worn floral pattern where she used to read. It disappeared, replaced by a modern leather sofa. Cold, uncomfortable. It looked like something from a hotel lobby. The walls, once a warm yellow, They caught the morning light beautifully. Clara loved that color. They were painted a sterile, fashionable gray, the color of concrete, the color of despair. The family photos disappeared from the mantelpiece, banished to a box in the attic, replaced by abstract art. Angry splashes of red and black. It meant nothing to me. My history was being erased. I protested. Of course. This is my home, I said. I tried to keep the tremor out of my voice. I felt weak, uncertain. These are Clara's things. You can't just throw them away. Emily sighed, sharp, exasperated. Dad, don't be difficult. Mom is gone. We need to move forward. She gestured around the gray room. We're trying to improve the property value. It's for your own good. For my own good. The words echoed in my head. They twisted every protest into a sign of my stubbornness, my inability to let go of the past. They made me feel guilty for grieving, guilty for existing. The isolation came next. Insidious, calculated. They stopped inviting my friends over. The Friday night poker games, I hosted them for 20 years. Cancelled. Too noisy, Tom, Ryan said, leaning against the doorframe, blocking my way. We need quiet in the evenings. Emily has a headache. When Jake came by one afternoon, my accountant, my best friend, he had my quarterly statements. Ryan met him at the door. I heard them talking in the hallway. Low voices, tense. Tom is sleeping, Ryan said firmly. He's been very tired lately, confused sometimes. I'll make sure he gets the message. Jake knew I never slept in the afternoon. I heard the doubt in his voice. Is he okay? Maybe I should just peek in. He needs his rest. Jake, Ryan insisted, blocking the doorway. His tone final. I was being cut off, marginalized, erased from my own life. I felt like a ghost in my own home, watching strangers rearrange the furniture, watching them destroy everything Clara and I had built, and I was powerless to stop them. Or so I thought. The financial control tightened like a vise. Emily suggested combining our bank accounts. It was presented as a matter of convenience, a way to simplify things. It's just easier to manage the household expenses. Dad, she explained, sliding the bank forms across the kitchen table. She smiled, bright, artificial. It didn't reach her eyes. We're paying for utilities and groceries anyway. It's silly to keep transferring money back and forth. She leaned closer, lowered her voice. And this way, we can make sure you're protected. You know how many scams target seniors. The irony was staggering. I hesitated. I had always been careful with money. My pension from the fire department was solid. Claire and I saved diligently. We owned the house outright. We had a comfortable nest egg, enough to last me the rest of my life, enough to leave something substantial for Emily. I wanted to protect that legacy. I think I prefer to keep things separate for now, I said, pushing the forms back towards her. My hand trembled slightly. I felt a chill in the room. That was the first time I saw it. The flash of anger in Emily's eyes, the same cold, hard look I saw tonight at the dinner table. The mask slipped. The loving daughter vanished. Dad, why don't you trust us? She demanded, her voice sharp, accusatory. We're your family. We moved in here to help you. Sacrificed our own lives. And this is how you treat us? Like strangers? Like thieves? The guilt trip was effective, masterful. I didn't want to alienate my only child. I was lonely. I was still grieving. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was being stubborn, paranoid. So, I signed the forms. I signed away my freedom. Once they had access to the money, the pretense of caring disappeared. The transition was swift, brutal. The caring daughter was replaced by a cold, demanding landlord. The helpful son-in-law became a tyrant, a monster. My allowance, drawn from my own money, reduced to a trickle. I had to ask for cash, for simple things, a haircut, a new book. It felt humiliating, degrading. I needed a new winter coat. My old one was threadbare. I asked Emily for money. You don't need much, Dad, she said dismissively, looking through a fashion magazine. You never go anywhere. And we need to be careful with our spending. Our spending. My savings were now funding Ryan's expensive suits, Emily's designer dresses, their lavish dinners. I was paying for my own imprisonment. I realized I was trapped. I was losing everything. My home, my independence, my dignity. I was being systematically dismantled, piece by piece. I started fighting back. Small, futile ways. I tried to regain control of my finances. I called the bank. The bank manager was polite, sympathetic, but useless. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller. Emily is the joint account holder. She authorized the transfers. There's nothing we can do without her signature." I tried to contact a lawyer, but Ryan monitored my phone calls, my emails. I was under constant surveillance. The walls had ears. The house felt like a prison cell. The breaking point came last week. Tuesday afternoon. The house was quiet. Emily and Ryan were out, likely spending my money, celebrating their victory. I was looking for my reading glasses. In the study, my sanctuary, Ryan had taken it over as his office. The room felt alien, cold, filled with his expensive gadgets. Stacks of paperwork, his mysterious real estate deals. I opened the desk drawer, and there they were, my glasses. But underneath them was a stack of papers. It caught my eye. The letterhead of a local real estate agency. I picked them up. My hands started shaking, violently. I could barely read the words. It was a listing agreement for my house. The asking price was absurdly high. They were selling my home, Clara's home, and below it another document, durable power of attorney. They wanted me to give them the legal authority to do it, to control my life, my finances, my future. They weren't just trying to control me. They were trying to erase me, completely. The realization hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs. I finally understood the depth of their betrayal. I waited for Ryan to come home. The hours dragged on. The silence, the house screamed in my ears. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed, marking the passing of time, the passing of my life. When he finally walked through the door, whistling cheerfully, I confronted him. "What is this?" I asked, holding out the papers. My voice was surprisingly calm. The calm before the storm, the calm of a man who has nothing left to lose. Ryan's face darkened. The cheerful mask vanished. He didn't try to lie. The time for deception was over. The gloves were off. The wolf finally showed his teeth. "It's time, Tom," he said coldly. Walking towards me, his eyes were dead. Shark eyes. "This house is too big for you. It's a waste of resources. We found a nice assisted living facility. Top of the line. You'll be comfortable there. They have activities. Nurses." He smiled. "Cruel. And we need the money from the sale. For our future." "Assisted living?" I whispered. The words caught in my throat. The thought of being locked away. A sterile facility. Surrounded by strangers. Waiting to die. It terrified me. I'm 68. I don't need assisted living. "You do now," he said. The cruel smile remained. "You're clearly incapable of managing your own affairs. You're confused. Unstable, Emily agrees. She's worried about you. My own daughter, my flesh and blood. I'm not leaving my home," I said, my voice rising. The firefighter in me, the captain who had faced down infernos, waking up from the long sleep of grief. "And I'm not signing anything." Ryan stepped closer. He was a big man, tall, broad. He used his size to intimidate. He towered over me. "You will sign it," he hissed, his voice low, venomous. "Or things will get very unpleasant for you. Don't fight me on this, Tom. You will lose." "You can't force me," I said, backing away. My heart pounded in my chest. "This is illegal."
"I'll call the police."
He laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. "I can do whatever I want. Who's going to stop me? You? The neighbors? The police?" He sneered. "They see a concerned son-in-law, taking care of a confused old man, a danger to himself. They won't look twice." We were standing at the top of the stairs. Steep staircase, the one Clara always worried about. I turned to go back to my room, to lock the door, to try and reach Jake. I needed help, and then I felt it, a hard, sharp shove, in the middle of my back. The world tilted. I was falling, weightless, the terrifying rush of air. I tried to grab the railing. My fingers slipped. The sickening crack. My arm hit the wooden banister. Halfway down, the explosion of pain, white hot, blinding. I landed in a heap, on the hardwood floor, at the bottom of the stairs. And then, darkness. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Bright fluorescent lights. Blinding. The sterile smell of antiseptic. My arm was on fire. Emily was sitting by my bedside. Her face eddied with worry, but as the fog cleared, I realized the worry wasn't for me. It was for herself. "You have to tell them you fell, Dad," she said urgently, her voice low, insistent, gripping my good hand, tightly, too tightly. "You tripped on the rug at the top of the stairs." She leaned closer, her eyes wide with fear. "If you say anything else, they will investigate. Do you want to ruin our lives? Do you want to send Ryan to jail? Your own son-in-law?" I was groggy, confused, in agony. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The betrayal was too deep. The pain too sharp. The doctor came in, a young woman, sharp eyes. Dr. Adams. She examined my arm, confirmed it was badly broken. "A spiral fracture. Mr. Miller," she explained. Her voice gentle but firm, often caused by a severe twisting motion, or a high-impact fall. She looked at me, a silent question in her eyes. She knew something was wrong. I needed surgery to set the bone. They kept me in the hospital for 3 days. Emily and Ryan visited once, brief, strained, for the benefit of the nursing staff. They played the part, the concerned family, fluffing my pillows, but their eyes were cold, calculating, impatient. They wanted me gone, but Jake visited every day. He walked into my room on the second day, his face grim. He carried a large manila envelope. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Thomas, what happened?" he asked, his voice low, pulling the curtain around my bed. "Privacy. I know you didn't just fall. You're as steady on your feet as a mountain goat." And Ryan seemed awfully nervous when I called the house. I told him everything, the money, the isolation, the power of attorney, the push. The words poured out of me, a torrent of fear, shame, anger. I had been so blind, so foolish. I let the wolves into the fold, blinded by my own grief, my own loneliness. Jake listened patiently, his expression growing darker with every word. He was a meticulous man, an accountant. He lived by the numbers, by the facts. But he was also fiercely loyal. We had been friends since childhood. "We have to stop them, Jake," I pleaded, gripping his hand with my good one. The desperation in my voice was raw. "They are stealing everything. They are destroying Clara's legacy. They are trying to destroy me." "We will," he promised, his voice firm, unwavering, "but we have to be smart. Ryan is dangerous. He's cornered, and cornered animals bite." He paused, looked at me sadly. "And Emily, she's not the girl you remember, Thomas. We have to accept that. That hurt more than the broken arm. We started planning. It was difficult. A logistical nightmare. I was trapped in the hospital, immobilized. Jake had to do all the legwork, moving quietly, discreetly, so as not to alert the enemy. The hunter became the hunted. If this story has kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and bring more stories like this to light. Jake started digging into Ryan's background. I had never bothered to check. I trusted Emily's judgment. What Jake found was shocking, but not surprising. It was a pattern of deception, exploitation. Ryan wasn't a successful real estate mogul. He was a con artist, a gambler, drowning in debt. He had a string of failed businesses, lawsuits, 2 previous marriages, ended in similar circumstances. He preyed on vulnerable people, bleeding them dry, moving on to the next victim. Emily was his latest mark, but also his willing accomplice. She was blinded by the lifestyle he promised her. The expensive clothes, the fancy cars, the illusion of success. She was willing to sacrifice her father to keep the charade going. Jake also uncovered the extent of the financial exploitation. It was worse than I thought. Ryan hadn't just been siphoning money from the joint account. He had been forging my signature on checks drawn from my retirement accounts, transferring large sums into his own offshore account. The total amount was staggering. Over $200,000. My life savings gone, vanished into thin air. We had the evidence of the fraud. Jake had the bank statements, the forged checks, the offshore account details, but we needed more. We needed proof of the physical abuse. The hospital records noted my injuries were consistent with a fall, but Dr. Adams, the sharp young doctor, had also noted my hesitation and anxiety in describing the incident. She suspected abuse. Jake spoke with her. She agreed to testify if needed. A small glimmer of hope in the darkness. "We need a confession," Jake said, spreading the documents on my hospital bed table. "Or at least, we need him to show his true colors. In front of witnesses, we need to catch him in the act of intimidation." That's when the idea of the Thanksgiving dinner came up. Jake found out Emily and Ryan were hosting a big party. They wanted to show off their new status, their newly acquired wealth. My wealth? They wanted to establish their dominance, to legitimize their takeover of my life. In front of the community, they will feel powerful. Invincible, Jake explained, his eyes gleaming, the strategist's focus. They will be surrounded by their friends, their allies. They will feel safe. That's when people make mistakes. That's when they boast. That's when the mask slips. I hated the idea, the thought of facing the humiliation, the pitying stares, the shame. It made me sick to my stomach. I wanted to hide, to disappear. I was an old man, broken arm, broken heart. But I knew it was the only way. I had to face the fire one last time. I came home from the hospital 2 days ago. Emily and Ryan were furious. They had already made arrangements for me to go straight to the assisted living facility, the prison they had chosen for me. But the hospital's social worker, Maria, alerted by Dr. Adams, intervened. She insisted I return home until suitable arrangements were made. She scheduled a follow-up visit to assess my living situation. She bought me time. She saved my life. The past 2 days were hell. They treated me like a prisoner. They locked me in my room, claiming it was for my own safety. They brought me meager meals, cold, served on plastic trays. Like an animal, Ryan threatened me constantly, his voice a low growl through the locked door. "If you say anything at the dinner, old man, you'll regret it," he hissed. "I'll make sure the next fall is your last, and no one will believe you." But I knew the plan was in motion. Jake had already contacted the police, the district attorney's office. He presented them with the evidence. The fraud, the suspected abuse. They were ready. They just needed the final piece of the puzzle. The public confirmation of the abuse. The corroboration of the witnesses. The trap was set. Back at the dinner table, Ryan was still holding court, oblivious to the trap closing around him. The arrogance of the man was astounding. "To new beginnings," he shouted, raising his glass of expensive wine I had bought, ironically, and to maximizing assets. His friends cheered, their laughter loud, hollow. Emily smiled indulgently, the perfect hostess. The dutiful wife, the accomplice. The humiliation continued. A series of calculated moves, designed to break my spirit, to crush me completely. Ryan looked at my car keys, still hanging on the hook by the door, a habit of 40 years. "I'm thinking of trading in that old junker, Tom," he said, smirking. "Time for an upgrade. A new Mercedes SUV, black, fully loaded." He winked at his friends. "You won't be needing it anyway. The assisted living facility has a shuttle bus. My car, the one I had kept in pristine condition, the one filled with memories. Road trips with Clara, singing along to the radio, the smell of her perfume lingering in the upholstery." I didn't answer. I just looked at him, holding his gaze, letting the silence stretch, the cold fury building inside me. Then Emily decided to twist the knife. She started talking about the master bedroom, our bedroom.
We need the space for a home gym, Dad.
she said, as if she were discussing the weather, her voice light, casual, cruel. Ryan needs a place to work out. He's been so stressed lately. She looked at me, no trace of emotion in her eyes. You'll have to move to the small guest room upstairs. It's cozier, easier to manage, less clutter. The master bedroom, where Claire and I had slept for 35 years, where I still sometimes reached out in the night, expecting to find her beside me, where I had held her as she took her last breath. The sanctity of that space, violated by the thought of Ryan's sweaty workout gear. I felt a sharp pang of grief, so intense it took my breath away. But I held my composure. I just stared at her. How could she be so cruel? How could she erase her mother's memory so completely, so callously? She was truly lost? Ryan, emboldened by my silence, decided to go for the kill. The final blow, he started telling a story about how I fell. He was drunk, he said loudly, laughing, looking around the table for approval. The old man can't hold his liquor anymore. Tripped on his own 2 feet. At the top of the stairs. He mimicked me falling, stumbling, a cruel pantomime. Went tumbling down like a sack of potatoes. Sad, really. Pathetic. That was too much. I hadn't touched a drop of alcohol since Clara died. It was a blatant lie, a vicious attempt to discredit me, to paint me as incompetent, to justify their actions. That's not true, I said. My voice quiet but clear, cutting through the sycophantic laughter. The room fell silent again. Dead silence. Ryan glared at me, his eyes burning with rage. He took a step towards me, his fists clenched. He was losing control. The mask was slipping, the monster underneath revealing itself, exactly as Jake predicted. My cousin Sarah tried to intervene again, diffuse the tension. She picked up a bowl of cranberry sauce, Clara's recipe, and offered it to me. Here, Thomas, have some cranberry sauce, she said. Her voice trembling, her eyes filled with fear. She knew what Ryan was capable of, but Emily stopped her. He doesn't like cranberry sauce, she said coldly, pulling the bowl away, a small, petty cruelty. I loved cranberry sauce. Emily knew that. The pettiness was staggering. It was a denial of my reality, a rewriting of my history, a final erasure. The tension was unbearable. The air crackled. Unspoken fear, resentment. The guests were trapped, witnesses to a slow-motion execution. They saw the truth. They saw the abuse. I looked at Jake. He checked his watch. It was time. And then the doorbell rang. Sharp, loud, cutting through the thick silence, like a siren in the night. Everyone froze. Ryan looked annoyed, the interruption breaking his concentration. His moment of triumph. Who could that be? He muttered, throwing his napkin on the table. We're having dinner. He strode towards the door, his footsteps heavy on the wooden floor, the footsteps of a man who believed he owned the world. I held my breath. My heart pounded against my ribs. A frantic drumbeat, signaling the final act. The curtain call. I heard the door open. Yes, Ryan said, his voice impatient, arrogant. A calm, authoritative voice answered. Ryan Peterson, who's asking? Ryan snapped, defensive, the bully sensing a bigger threat. I'm Detective Miller with the County Sheriff's Department. We have a warrant for your arrest. The silence in the dining room was absolute. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears, the sound of the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, deafening. The sound of justice. Ryan laughed, nervous, blustering. The sound of a man realizing he had walked into a trap. A warrant? For what? This must be a joke. Who put you up to this? Was it Jake? No joke, sir, Detective Miller said. I heard footsteps entering the house. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. The sound of authority. The charges are aggravated assault, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, grand larceny, and attempted murder. Attempted murder, the words hung in the air. Heavy. Final. Jake had convinced the DA. The push down the stairs. Given my age, the severity of the fall. It was not just assault. It was a calculated attempt on my life. Motivated by greed. Emily rushed out of the dining room, her face pale, shock. The elegant mask finally shattering, revealing the terrified, greedy woman underneath. What is going on? This is ridiculous. My father is fine. He fell. He told everyone he fell. I stood up slowly, leaning heavily on the table. My legs felt weak, but my resolve was strong. The firefighter in me stood tall, ready to face the inferno, ready to extinguish the flames. I walked towards the hallway. Ryan was standing there, his face red with fury, arguing with Detective Miller. Two other uniformed officers stood behind him. A woman in a suit stood beside them, holding a briefcase. I recognized her. The assistant district attorney Jake had contacted. The cavalry had arrived. "You can't just barge into my house?" Ryan shouted, gesturing wildly, the facade of the successful businessman crumbling into dust, revealing the cheap crook underneath. "This is harassment. I have lawyers." "This is not your house, Mr. Peterson," the ADA said calmly, her voice cutting through his bluster like ice. "This is Mr. Thomas Miller's house, and we have overwhelming evidence of your crimes, bank records, medical reports, and the testimony of several witnesses present tonight regarding your confession of assault." She looked at the stunned guests, peering from the dining room. "Your lesson, I believe you called it." Ryan turned and saw me. His eyes widened with realization, then narrowed, a hatred so pure it was mesmerizing. The mask was completely gone. "You," he hissed. "You did this, you ungrateful old bastard." He lunged towards me, his face contorted in a snarl, ready to finish what he started. But the officers intercepted him, instantly, twisting his arms behind his back, handcuffing him. A satisfying click. He struggled, cursing violently, but it was useless. He was trapped. The fire was contained. Emily was sobbing hysterically, the sound ugly, desperate, the sound of a woman realizing she had lost the biggest gamble of her life. "How could you do this, Dad? He's my husband. We're your family. We were taking care of you." I looked at her, my daughter, the child I adored, the child who betrayed me. He broke my arm. "Emily," I said, my voice shaking with emotion, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on me, heavier than the plaster cast. "He pushed me down the stairs. He stole my money. He tried to steal my home. I took a step closer, and you helped him. You stood by and watched. You justified it. You chose him over me. You chose money over your own father." Emily stared at me, her eyes filled with tears, but also with a damning horror. She realized the magnitude of what she had done. The life she had built on lies and cruelty was crumbling around her. The expensive dress, the fancy car, the illusion of success. It was all gone, turned to ashes. The ADA approached her. "Ms. Miller, you are also under arrest for your role in the financial exploitation and conspiracy to commit grand larceny." She nodded to one of the officers. "A restraining order is being issued against both you and Mr. Peterson. You are no longer welcome in this house." Emily looked around wildly, looking for an escape, but there was none. She was trapped, just as I had been. The irony was not lost on me. The guests started filtering out, their faces pale. Stunned, they muttered apologies. Avoiding my eyes, they had sat there, silent witnesses to my humiliation. And now they couldn't escape fast enough. From the scene of the crime, my cousin Sarah rushed to my side, hugging me gently, careful of my broken arm. "I'm so sorry, Thomas," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I knew something was wrong. I felt it in my bones, but I was too afraid to say anything. "I failed you." I patted her back weakly. "It's okay, Sarah. It's over now." The police led Ryan away. He glared at me one last time, his eyes filled with the promise of revenge. But I didn't flinch. I had faced worse fires. I had faced death. He was nothing. Emily stood alone in the hallway, her elegant dress looking absurd in the harsh glare of the police flashlights. She looked at me, her face streaked with mascara, the daughter I loved lost behind the mask of greed and resentment. "Dad, please," she whispered, her voice broken, reaching out a trembling hand. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I wanted more. I looked at my daughter, the child I had cherished, the child who had betrayed me so completely. My heart ached, a physical pain radiating through my chest, deeper and more profound than the throbbing in my arm. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be okay, but I couldn't. Some things can't be forgiven. You forgot whose house this really is, Emily, I said quietly, the words heavy with finality. You forgot what your mother taught you about family, about loyalty, about love. You chose greed over everything else. Now you have nothing. I turned away, unable to look at her anymore. The pain in my heart was far worse than any physical injury. The loss was absolute. Jake walked over, put a steadying hand on my shoulder. Are you okay, Thomas? I nodded, the exhaustion hitting me like a physical blow, the adrenaline receding, leaving behind a vast emptiness. I am now. We walked back into the dining room. The table still laden with food, the candles flickering softly, casting long, dancing shadows on the gray walls. The smell of turkey and sage still hung in the air. The smell of Clara. I sat down at the head of the table. My table. Jake sat next to me. The house was silent. The silence was different now. Not the oppressive silence of fear, tension. It was the silence of peace, but it was also the silence of profound loss. I had won. I had my house back. My independence? I had justice. But I had lost my daughter. I looked at the empty chair opposite me, where Ryan had sat, boasting of his victory. I looked at the chair where Emily had stood, defending her husband's cruelty. My arm still throbbed. The physical pain would heal, the cast would come off, the bones would mend, but the emotional scars would remain, the broken trust, the shattered family, the gaping hole where my daughter used to be. I picked up the fork with my right hand. My hand was steady now, no tremor. Jake picked up the carving knife, Clara's knife. He carved a piece of turkey, placed it on my plate. Then, without saying a word, he cut it into small, manageable pieces. He added a generous scoop of cranberry sauce. "Happy Thanksgiving, Thomas," he said softly, his voice filled with compassion. Understanding, I looked at him, my old friend, the one person who had stood by me, when everyone else had turned away, the true meaning of family. "Happy Thanksgiving, Jake," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. I started eating. The food was cold, but it tasted like freedom. It tasted like survival. I knew the road ahead would be long, difficult. Court appearances, legal battles, the agonizing process of reclaiming my life, rebuilding the ruse of my finances. But for now, I was safe. I was home. As I sat there, in the quiet emptiness of my dining room, a single tear rolled down my cheek. It was a tear of relief, but also of profound sadness. I had proven Ryan wrong. I was still the boss here. But the victory felt hollow, because some things, once broken, cannot be easily fixed. And as I looked at the empty chairs, I knew that the fire I had faced tonight, the fire that consumed my own family, was the most devastating one of all. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.